Welcome to the Patryk Real Estate Show, where we explore the fascinating world of real estate investing with your host, Patryk Switek. Patryk is a dynamic young entrepreneur and an accomplished real estate investor who's passionate about helping others achieve financial freedom. Each week, we sit down with some of the most inspiring individuals in the real estate industry and delve into their personal journeys, lessons learned, and secrets to their success. Let's dive into this week's episode.
Matt and Craig, welcome to the Patryk Real Estate Show. You two are just truly amazing. You guys are some of the best operators I know. You guys are based out of San Diego. In terms of short-term rental units, you guys have 13 collectively that you own, and then total 30 that you guys manage. So you guys have been quite impressive in how fast you guys have been scaling. And me and you guys, just like we have quarterly calls to talk about how we're structuring our short-term rental business. And this is just, I guess we're just masterminding at this point. And we had some really great conversations going. So I thought I had to get both of you guys on this podcast to just talk to everybody else, talk to the audience about, you know, your start, your beginning, and just give some amazing pointers to other people instead of just having it secretly behind closed doors between us three, right? So yeah, without further ado, Craig and Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Patryk. Yeah, really
Yeah.
appreciate you having us on. Definitely. Just want to say thanks for having us on. And it's been fun sharing ideas as we've grown our businesses. It'll be exciting to see where we're all at in 3 to 5 years, but there's no doubt we share a lot in common, and more than happy to share with the viewers some of the stuff that we've been masterminding on lately.
Yeah, 100%. And I think here, this is just a point for everybody that's listening. I believe so heartily that you should have 30% of the people around you should be people that you mentor, right? It's people that you basically help structure the ideas of the teachings that you've learned to the people that are just getting started, or people that are below you, maybe 2 or 3 steps behind you, that kind of thing. And then there's people that are better than you, like where you want to get to their level, right? Those are people that are going to be mentoring you. And so you learning from those people on how you can get better. And then I believe that also 33%, 1/3 of the people you hang out with should be people on the same level as you. I think that's so important. And I think a lot of people think about the 2 others, but they don't think about the last one. And that's exactly what we have. And I can safely say we're pretty much on the even playing field in the sense like we're pretty much in the same boat. So we're always learning from each other, and I appreciate that relationship. But regardless, I want to hear more. This is about you guys. So I want to hear a little bit more about what's your background? How'd you guys stumble upon short-term rental investing? And then the love story of how you two met and created this amazing empire of yours.
Awesome. Yeah, I can go first on how I got started. When I graduated college, I graduated with an engineering degree, and I was super fired up. I'm like, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work my way up in this company. And when I started working, I didn't really like what I saw. I saw people putting 50, 60 hours a week away from their families, their kids, and everything. So I was like, in the cubicle all day long. I'm just like, man, there has to be a better way. So I read that Purple Bible, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, man, I got to get some rental properties, right? So I was all about hey, let's get some long-term rentals to supplement the engineering income. And then I'm just booking these Airbnbs in Palm Springs for golf trips, Colorado for ski trips. And I'm just booking these places. We're paying $1,500 to $2,000 a weekend, right? And I'm like, man, if this host just rents it out for 4 weekends, and I was looking on Zillow, their purchase price, their mortgage payment, I'm like, based on what we're paying, if they just do the weekends, they're cash flowing thousands of dollars. So that kind of shifted my mindset from like long-term rentals to short-term rentals. So I was like, I got to get a short-term rental. And then the next step was like, where do I buy it? So I was like, hey, there's a lot of different areas you can buy in the country, but I want a place that's growing with jobs, appreciation, because that's going to be your biggest bang for your buck long-term, right, is the appreciation. So I need a market with a lot of job growth, a lot of people moving there, and a fun city, right, where people want to visit for short-term rentals. Growing up in Indiana, I was like, Nashville comes to mind, right? Music scene, real fun time. But then there's big companies moving to the area. They're getting a new football stadium. So jumped in and bought my first short-term rental in Nashville, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. Wow. We'll go to the part where you met Matt, because Nashville, I have a pretty strong feeling that might have something to do with how you guys met. But
yeah,
Matt, what was your background?
Yeah, man, of course. Pretty much all I did, I just copied Craig, and that's how I've gotten all my success. It was as simple as that. Craig did all the legwork, and then I just copied him. But no, in reality, I'm from Wisconsin. We're both Midwest guys. I graduated school there and moved out to Boston and did the same thing, right? Jumped into the W-2, was working for a software company in sales and was doing great. But I saw that the people above me, even all the way up to the CEO, were just working more, right? They were just working more time, more hours. And it wasn't they had all the money they needed, but they were still working like crazy. I started looking at different ways. We quit our jobs and moved to the Caribbean. I've lived in Spain. I've lived in St. Martin. And I lived in Boston and Wisconsin. So we've traveled a lot. And my wife and I have a love for travel. And when you're traveling, now you get to stay in accommodations, all different types. So the first time I stayed at an Airbnb, I was blown away. I was like, it was a little pool house in somebody's backyard in Nashville, of all places. And it was just a really fun environment. I got to meet the owners, hang out with their dog. And I was like, man, this is just so much fun. So I enjoyed staying at them before having any of them. And when I met Craig, he did a presentation, was sharing the numbers on his first place in Nashville. And I said, wow, I need to take a look at that. I had done multifamily properties in Wisconsin. My first one was a $55,000 fourplex. So for anybody in California or wherever you're listening, those did exist a few years ago, and they probably still do in the Midwest. But started with long term, switched over to short term once I met Craig, and we've been up and running ever since then. So it's been a fun journey the past 4 years since we started the business.
So where did you guys exactly meet? Because Craig, you're doing some presentation. Is this online, like on Facebook, or is this just like how were you guys friends beforehand? And
yeah, so this is pre-COVID at a real estate meetup. So everything was in person, and it was just probably a real estate meetup that I've been going to for 3 or 4 years. And I was just learning when I got started, and I bought my first deal, and they call it like the rookie presentation, right? So like I just got started. I wanted to present my first deal in front of the group, and it was probably a group of 50, 60 people. And I just presented my Nashville deal, went through the whole entire design, went through like the numbers I was getting. And then Floyd, Matt just came up to me after the meeting and was like, hey man, this is awesome, dude. Let's get lunch. So we ended up getting some tacos down in Pacific Beach. And yeah, we're just brainstorming business ideas. And he's, what if we started like an arbitrage company? So that's basically where you sign a year lease. And instead of living there for a year, you throw it on Airbnb or any short-term rental site, and you get the difference between a short-term rental and a long-term rental rent. So we started doing that. We both put in probably 20,000 seed money to get 3 units going right away and just jumped right in. Me and him are both action takers. So I think as soon as we had that lunch, I think we had our first arbitrage within 2 or 3 weeks, just cranking, ready to go. So we didn't really think about it too much. We just dove in and got it rolling. And yeah, the rest is history.
There's a lot of history being made over tacos, especially in Pacific Beach. Which place did you guys go to in Pacific Beach for tacos? Do you guys remember?
Craig, I don't know if it was Oscars or I think it was Oscars.
Yeah, I drive past there every day. I forget what it's called though, but yeah, it's right on the boardwalk.
Great ceviche.
Yeah.
For anybody that's in San Diego. I love it. So you guys met up. Did you guys put a plan together of what you guys want to do, or you guys just both started looking and somebody found it and you guys both decided to partner up? How did that conversation go? Did you guys put any operating agreements together or just start working together?
No operating agreements. We pretty much just said, okay, we want to try this out. And if it works, amazing. If it doesn't work, then we get a college education and we learn how a business works and how business fails. And I think that when you're not afraid of the failure side of it and you look at it and say, hey, this is something that we know the direction that we want to go. Let's take steps in that direction where we know we're going to learn a ton of stuff along the way. And if we just work hard at it, we think we're going to make it through. And so this was let me give you the lay of the land. December 2019, we created the LLC. We had probably met a couple months before we were in the group together. We started the LLC in December. We were calling landlords in January. We got 3 leases signed up starting in February. And just to preface, we got the approval of the landlords. I think that is 100%. You have to do that if you're doing arbitrage. We got approval. We let them know what we were doing, that we were a business. We had the LLC that we had created a month before, but we had the LLC. And we got 3 leases. And then in February, we designed and furnished everything. Craig and I had bloody knuckles from setting up all the furniture. We were on site. We were doing it. My wife, Kim, was doing the interior design for us. And then March, we started accepting our first guests. And that was March 2020. And so we had all these bookings, and then COVID hit 2 weeks later, and we lost $60,000 in bookings in about a week. And Craig and I we caught up that week, and we were just like, we're not sure if this is going to be the fastest business that ever was born and died, but we stuck it out, and we really ground through that. We found midterm tenants who were just going to help us break even. And we made it through that 6-month period where they had all the lockdowns, and we had tenants in there that we took care of midterm. And then as it just exploded, the market exploded for the next 2 years coming out of COVID, and we were back up and running. And where a lot of those companies fell apart or failed during COVID, we weren't big enough to fail yet. We were able to make it through, and then the rest is history from there. So it was quite the journey.
I love it. So how did you guys determine, because I in retrospect, it makes sense why you two work together, right? I just know both of your personalities work really well, and you guys have very complementary skill sets in what you guys do, because at the time you still had W-2 jobs. Now it's different, but that's just recent. So how did you guys determine who does what? Split the workload.
Yeah, I think Matt's always been like the sales and marketing guy, and I've been the operations. But when we both have W-2 jobs, like we have to jump in and fill in for each other. So I was calling landlords, cold calling them, picking up arbitrage, management clients, right? Matt was jumping into the operations sometimes when I couldn't be there and answer guest messages or schedule maintenance. So it's like we had our own roles and responsibilities within the company. But when you're grinding, getting after it, trying to make a company successful, right? You have to wear different hats and jump into different roles. So I think we just try to figure out, hey, what were we doing each day and who had availability, and then base our roles and responsibilities based on who had more time, right? And I think I just had a lot of time with my engineering job. It was remote and stuff. So I ended up doing a lot of just like the operation stuff, and then ended up can jump into some sales calls too with some arbitrage. But then, yeah, Matt is just like the mastermind of the visionary, right? Hey, let's hire VAs to fire ourselves from the job or what we're doing. So hire VAs, hire a team so we can get out of the business and work on the business rather than in the business. So he's been a huge help on just masterminding this whole like vision of the company. So we're not in the day-to-day, every day, answering messages, working on maintenance, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I would say we didn't really define roles until maybe a year ago, right? We were, like Craig said, we were just doing it as a side gig. We just quit our W-2 jobs about 6 months ago. So I think that's another big thing that maybe we can talk about a little bit. That is a big shift going from a side gig to a full-time gig. And then when you make that shift, now you change your mindset to say, okay, if we're going to grow this thing, let's put some roles and responsibilities in place. Let's take ownership over certain KPIs of the business and who's going to own what areas. But we're still there to jump in when the other needs help. And I think what our mindset has always been is we're both on the same page as far as where we want to go in life, right? What the motivation is, the underlying motivation for why we're doing this in the first place. And then that's the main driver behind everything that we're doing. And then we don't really hold each other to say, hey, what did you do today? Or how much did you work today? We're not trying to get to say, oh, we're doing exactly 50% of the work each. There's so much that comes up and fluctuates on a daily basis for both of us that we connect and we try to solve each other's problems. Hey, you're running into this issue. Let's try to solve it together. I'm running into this. Let's solve it together. And that, I think, is the hallmark of a really good partnership. And I think we just got really lucky that we matched up without too much effort and just realized that, hey, we're both motivated in the same way, and let's try it out and see how it goes.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's the key to a successful partnership? Because you guys, it almost felt like luck, because you guys just stumbled upon each other and you guys are both very reasonable. I think maybe this is my hypothesis. Maybe just like you guys just felt each other's vibe, right? You guys just knew that you guys had similar values, maybe the same goal, the same why, and were able to align accordingly. That's what it sounds like, but curious what you think.
Yeah, man, I would say the biggest thing, and Craig, I'm curious for your thoughts too, but the biggest thing is communication, just like in any relationship that you ever have. And Craig and I are just communicating constantly. I might have a rough day or something, and then I catch up with Craig and he motivates me, and vice versa. Like we will motivate each other. But whenever issues come up, having that line of communication open. So Craig and I talk every single week, an hour and a half a week, where we get to run through all the issues that are coming up. Hey, what fell through the cracks? What do I need to do? What do you need to do? And now we're even starting to put in place EOS, the EOS system, to even make it more official so that things don't slip through the cracks. But I personally am very motivated to make sure our communication line stays really open and really honest, because I think once that starts to fall apart or you don't have the regular line of communication, that's when misinterpretation can happen and resentment can start to happen. And I think that's with any relationship. So that's really important to me. But Craig, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I agree. Communication's been huge for us, and just at least putting it on the calendar, right? An hour and a half to, hey, this is our time where we just talk through the business, talk through issues that are coming up. And then also too, like you said, Patrick, our values are aligned, right? We have similar values. We have the same end goals, right? So we're always looking at the bigger picture. We don't let little things trip us up, right? When we have a way bigger vision and for the company. So I think that's huge, just communication and then values. You want to get someone that just has the same values as you, right? So I think those two are huge when forming a partnership.
Yeah, I'll relate to that. I think Josh Rudin is my business partner on the management side, and we have properties together. And I'll be honest, him and we just have the same values. And what I mean by that is just for instance, we care about the guests a lot. And to say that is different than to actually mean it, in the sense that if a guest is having a bad experience, even if the owner is pissed off at the guest or something happens, I rather take the side, like, at the end of the day, like, we're serving the guests. So I don't want to partner up with an owner that doesn't see it the same way. You see what I mean? And so Josh and I think the same way in that sense, which allows the decisions to be pretty seamless. Like, when we bump heads on what we think is right on a decision, usually we'll go back to the core values and be able to make that decision happen. So I think that's really cool how you guys are doing the same thing as well. And I think partnerships make this path a lot less lonely. So I think you guys are doing a great job with that. But I wanted to get more into what's next after you guys got the first few arbitrage units. How did you guys get into managing other people's properties as well? And what was scale looking like for you?
Yeah, so we started with the arbitrages and we kept those through COVID, right? We worked our way through COVID. It was just so organic how everything grew. It was a side gig the whole time. Craig and I really during COVID, we just managed those few arbitrages that we had. We weren't managing for anybody else. And then we were buying properties, right? And I was buying in Nashville and Craig was buying in Nashville. And then towards the end of COVID, he was buying in Scottsdale. I was buying in Scottsdale, and we bought here in San Diego as well. So during COVID, we really focused on doing our own real estate education, sharing ideas between each other. And then we expanded our own personal portfolio of properties. And when you start doing that, now you start putting in place different things like automated messages and cleaning integrations and simple integrations, things like that. So we were building out the management side of the operations on our own properties first before we started offering that to anybody else. And really, it was other people, friends and family, colleagues, other people that we knew who were investing, who started to come around and say, hey, I have the money, I want to buy these properties, but I don't want to operate them. Can you guys do it for me? Let's come up with some kind of agreement. And we were just doing it really as it came in, word of mouth, for the longest time. And finally we said, hey, if we're growing this fast, word of mouth, we can definitely, if we put our efforts into actually creating a sales and marketing platform, actually getting leads coming in, that we can scale this thing up and probably replace our W-2 incomes pretty quickly. So that was the way that it grew. Started with arbitrage, focused on our personal properties, and then the management started growing organically from there.
Yeah, but to add to that too, I think a huge catalyst for our business is just like the realtors we were buying our own deals from. They were just like the go-to in the market to sell short-term rentals, right? So we proved to them that, hey, we have a great model as far as managing our properties, and that gave them the confidence to refer their clients to us, right? So we grew a lot through just like referrals from realtors and people doing a lot of business in the area. So I think that's been huge too for us, is just to partner with really good realtors in the markets, and then offer a referral bonus or whatever that is, or just treat their clients right. Like, they want to keep selling to clients, right? So if their clients are having a great management experience, they're going to want to buy more, and they're going to trust the realtor for more recommendations and referrals. So I think that's been huge for us to grow that side of the management business.
Awesome. That's great. So when people are starting out, do you recommend people going down the arbitrage model, or do you recommend people going down the management model? What's the take there?
Yeah, I think it all depends on how much cash you have available. So if you don't have any cash available, it's really tough to do the arbitrage route because you got to do first month's rent, you got to do security deposit, you have to buy all the furniture. But if you do the management route, it's no cost, right? The owner buys all the furniture and then you just manage it for them for a percentage. So it all depends. And there's pros and cons to each model, but both are great cash flow models, right? You could cash flow a couple thousand for each model. And if you do the arbitrage, as long as you have money for the furniture, then you're good to up and running. Get that landlord's approval and boom, you're good. So it all depends, I feel like, on how much money you have to get started. And then if you have management clients too, if you're managing for other owners, then you have to answer to them, right? You got to make sure they're happy and stuff too. So that's another thing that factors into it. If you're managing for someone else too, you got to make sure that they're willing to invest, like you said, Patrick, into the guest experience, into their property. So that's huge too. Arbitrage is like, hey, you have all control of that listing, right? You put money into the furniture, you make sure the guest is having a great experience. So there's definitely pros and cons to each one.
Yeah, I would say that the Craig, exactly right. It's definitely easy if you don't have a bunch of money right now to invest in arbitrage. It's easy to get started with management. You can just create an LLC like Craig and I did. You create that LLC as a management company, and then you have to learn the ropes, right? You can watch YouTube videos. You can listen to podcasts like this. There's so much information out there as far as different tools and tricks for how to manage these rentals and do it at a really high level. But there's nothing that's better than actually getting the experience. So whether you have one or whether you stay at one yourself, if you just go stay at an Airbnb, you can see what their messages are. You can keep track of those. You can use those, reuse those yourself, and you can be up and running pretty quickly. Go to friends and family who might have a property, or start going to these real estate groups, right? And just sharing. I think that's how Craig and I met. That's how we've learned so much. We went to the real estate groups and we said, hey, here's the route that we want to go. Match up with somebody who's already doing it, like you said, Patrick, with somebody who's a few steps ahead of you, who can say, hey, here's how I got started, learn from them, and then just share with the rest of the group, make relationships, and next property will come over to you and they'll say, hey, yeah, let's try it out. You might need to take a smaller management fee to start. That's what we did. Patrick, I don't know if you did the same, but it's like, hey, whatever it takes to get that first client in, whatever, 10%, right? Same amount as long-term rental management fee, we'll take it, because now we have a referenceable client. Now we have a property. Now we have our first one, and now we're up and running and we're operating. From there, it just grows so much faster exponentially from there.
Yeah, the proof of concept is huge. I've seen that too. Like when I teach my students, I always tell them, hey, just get your first deal, whatever it takes. Just get your first deal, so then you have a case study you can use to be able to get other clients. And it just spreads like wildfire. And it's funny, I had this one student, and even though he didn't close any of these deals, like it just didn't work out. The fact that I gave him this one client, I was like, I don't think this is somebody that I would take personally. And I just threw it at him as, hey, you can try working on your sales ability. And he goes in, and the guys, maybe it doesn't make sense for us to work together, but I have these 3 other people that are buying 3 other $1 million+ properties in Palm Springs. Talk to them. And I'm like, dude, I would take those clients, but I just didn't take the call. So I'm like, all right, it's good for him. Let's let him have that experience. And I think that's the cool thing, is you never know taking these calls, like how fast people are going to start referring you out, and it can grow from there.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of, usually investors that hang together flock together, right? They have other investor friends, right? So if you get in with one investor, we've seen this too, like they have other investor friends that have rental properties and one in on the cash flow and all the benefits of short-term rentals too, right? So it's really easy to expand your network of web of people you can manage for, right? Based on just taking on clients. We've done the same thing, right? Coworkers, and then our coworkers' friends, or our coworkers' family. We've managed some of their properties too. So your web expands the more clients you take on.
Yeah, and I think the key to the sales side of it is, especially when you're getting started, is what's the value that you're bringing to that client, to that person. And I think especially when you're getting started, you really have to think about what value can you bring to other people, because that's where things expand exponentially. If you can find a niche where you can create value, then that person, and you find somebody, then that person's going to tell the next person. They're going to tell the neighbors, right? Because now you've created this niche, and they're like, wow, this person really knows this area, or knows this model in this area. And certain, we were working with flippers, and interest rates went up like crazy. And now they're saying, hey, we don't want to sell the houses right now. We're going to try to hold them for a while. And what way can we get the most cash flow? It's not going to be a long-term rental. It's going to be a short-term rental. And so now they're looking for operators, and we just happen to be there at the right time. And the fact that we're always out making connections with people is what brings the leads coming in. And so I think it's not so much that it's just we're sitting back and, hey, things are being thrown at us. Not at all. We're going out, we're doing these podcasts, we're going to the meetups, we're making relationships, we're presenting at the meetups and trying to share as much information as we can on what we've learned. And then that comes back to you tenfold in some other way, right? So I think it's just that abundance mindset that you have to have if you're going to be successful in any business, this one included.
That's powerful. Abundance mentality is huge, man. So at this time, let's just backtrack to that situation that we were talking about. Like, you guys are scaling, whatever. You guys quit your jobs not too long ago, but that was the end goal. So walk me through, what were you guys doing at your jobs? I know, Craig, you mentioned engineering. Matt, like, how many hours does it take to even manage these properties on the side? You said it was a side hustle. Is it extensive, or how did you guys do all that?
Yeah, I can start first, but I was in software sales. And so that was my career. I did that for almost a decade, almost 10 years, with a sabbatical in the Caribbean. But yeah, that I was working for Concur. I was probably working easily 60 hours a week on that. It was a really great job, but it was a high demand sales environment. So I needed to be on top of it. So that's where Craig had a little bit more free time. He was able to handle some of the more day-to-day operations. But that, there's no doubt, that was the goal, was to get out of the W-2, be able to create a business where we can hire people to do the kind of day-to-day work, and then we can continue to scale that up and create something that, instead of me selling software for somebody else, that I'm selling something that I truly believe in, that I'm really excited for, and that is creating, equity in a business that will be worth something for us and our families in the future. So that was the vision. And to bring that to reality, it took us 3 years to grow the business and actually get out of the W-2. Now, Craig and I are very conservative. We share that value. We really wanted to make sure we built the plane before we jumped. Other people are just like, and I think, Patryk, you're like that. We're just like, hey, I'm jumping and I'm going to make it work and build it on the way down. And that's worked great for you. Craig and I are a little bit more conservative, so it took us a little longer. But coming out of the W-2, we were able to pay ourselves a salary right off the bat. So that has really helped out with that sort of transition coming out of there. Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, just going off what Matt said, I think it's huge to hire a team and just figure out, hey, what am I spending a lot of time doing the day to day, and what do I not like doing? And then fire yourself from that position, right? So to get started, me and Matt were putting furniture together. So I remember running into Home Goods on the phone with Kim, his wife. Oh, I need to pick up throw pillows or like pictures or whatever. So I was like, I'm doing all that. I'm putting this stuff together. But then I'm like, all right, now we need to hire someone to put all the furniture together. So that was the first time we fired ourselves from the business. Then I'm in there messaging guests and working with maintenance, scheduling all that stuff. I'm like, man, I do not enjoy this. So it's like, all right, let's hire some VAs to come in and do everything. And I joke with Matt, I'm like, our virtual assistants are awesome in the Philippines. Like, way better customer service skills than me, right? Like, I'm short with guests. I'm like, oh man, but like, our VAs are just so nice. They're so friendly, so accommodating. So that was another huge upgrade of me firing myself from messaging guests. And then it's just always, hey, what am I doing? How can I fire myself from the business and move more towards that CEO role where you're just making decisions, right? So I think that's what we're doing now in the business. We're not working at all in the business as far as like messaging guests or anything. So we're completely out of that. And me and him, like Matt said, we're focused on the relationships, right? Going to networking events, going to meetups, doing podcasts. I think that's what we're really focusing on right now, that's what me and Matt like to do, right? Like, we met at a networking event. I really enjoy networking with people, learning from people. So it's like, me and him are definitely operating right now on what we like to do and what we really enjoy doing. So I think that's huge. Just writing that down. That's been a huge help in this part of the business, right? It's just like mapping everything out, figuring out what we do, and then hiring a role, someone that's really good at that role and enjoys doing it. Your business will explode. So I think that's really important for us.
Yeah. And I think that's the only way you two could work W-2 jobs while doing this business on the side. Now imagine if you didn't have the technology, you didn't have the team members, you still had to build everything and all of that for all 30 properties. I think that would be quite overwhelming. But you guys were managing, I think, close to 30 at least. I think it was like 25 or so at the time before you guys quit your jobs, like just on the side. So I'm curious, when was that point for you guys to decide, you know what, now is the time to quit the job? Was it a specific number you wanted to hit, or was it a time frame?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. It was actually the first STR Wealth Conference in Nashville. If you remember, that's where we first met Patryk. And that was the first time that we had been in a big group, in a big room of Airbnb short-term rental investors. We're meeting everybody, we're chatting with everybody. You kind of have that imposter syndrome where you're saying, hey, we're just doing this as a side gig. It's not really a big deal. And then you go into this room and you realize, hey, we're actually operating as long as some of the bigger players in this room. And we also have more properties than under management, even as a side gig, than a lot of people who are doing it full time. And so you start to get that realization of, hey, why don't we start taking this seriously? Why are we afraid to jump into this full time? So you start to change that mindset on it. And then after coming out of that, Craig and I said, okay, we now see the vision and we know that we want to get out of the W-2. So let's put a date in place. Let's put a plan in place to get there. Let's have a clear vision of how much the business should be making, how much we should be getting paid, all that good stuff, and actually pay ourselves a little bit out. That way we can offset the change in income quite a bit. So 9 months later, we went to the second STR Wealth Conference, and Craig had already quit his job by the time we got there. I was maybe a month behind him. So the catalyst was really getting into a room of people that are doing a similar thing. And so I think you see a theme here where it's, you got to get around people that are doing what you're doing, to your point, whether they're a few steps behind, right where you're at, a few steps ahead. And then that gives you a lot of context for where you're at and where you can be. And I think that's really when the mind shift changed for us. And it took us less than a year from that first conference to drop the W-2 jobs.
Yeah, and to go up what Matt said, it's so important to get around people that have the fruit on the tree, right? So we went to the conference and we saw plenty of people that have left their jobs. And me personally, I hadn't left my job because I had a bunch of limiting beliefs. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do about health insurance? What am I going to do about 401k? What am I going to do about all this? And then I talked to someone that left their job and they're like, oh, health insurance is $400. I'm like, $400, it's like a fourth of a management client, right? So it's like, that's not a big hurdle, right? And then it's 401k, like I don't get a 401k anymore. And then I'm just thinking, every month that you own a property, you're paying down the mortgage, your place is appreciating. And it's just, that's my 401k, right? My properties, because they're getting paid down every month. So it's like, you get around these people and they just talk you through your limiting beliefs. And then you just realize, oh, it's really not that big of a deal. And plenty of people have done it. And we just saw too, like a lot of people that left their jobs, their business was just exploding when they went all in. Even if I had time to build this on the side, I still spent a lot of my time thinking about my engineering job, my W-2 job. It's like when you can get all in and focused on that one thing, like it'll just take off and it'll explode. So I think that's huge. Matt said, and like you said, Patryk, get around people that are higher level than you and have the fruit on the tree and just follow in their footsteps, ask them questions, be curious, and try to figure it out. But yeah, that's been huge for us for sure.
I think there's something to be said about burning the boats too, right? If you're still hanging on here, it's so easy to not give your full attention over to this thing, which you know is the way that you want to go, but you're still holding on, you're still sitting on the boat, not ready to jump off. And so we had to be like, hey, we got to burn the boats. We got to jump ship, get on land and go do some exploring. And really that's how I view it, is we're exploring all new territory. It's not like this, tons of people, other people have built businesses, but we haven't. So we're exploring in different areas. And honestly, that's what gets me excited every morning, is exploring and saying, hey, I'm going to learn something new today. I might fail a few times throughout this process. I'll probably fail a lot, but I learn from every one of those. And then we just continue to get better. How else do you get anywhere in life, right?
Yeah, I have a analogy that I think fits in here pretty well. It's the whole philosophy of, hey, you're hanging on a cliff on a tree branch and you're holding on, and that's the job, right? You're holding on to it and you're like, I need it to climb up and get to financial freedom, top of the hill. And you're trying to reach out to the top, seeing if there's anybody to help you out there. And sometimes you just gotta trust that they tell you, just let go of it. Just let go of the branch. You'll be fine. Just let go. And then you realize that the ground is just right below you, and that you stumble upon the ground. You're like, oh, everything's okay. I'm good. I let go of the job and everything's cool. So I think I like to use that analogy in that situation.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think you're taught through school and everything else to how to be an employee. And I think Craig and I were great employees, and shifting the mindset from an employee to an owner as our identity, right? You're letting go of your identity of what you had up to that point. And I think that's why it is difficult to let go, because when your identity is built into the company or into that role or that title that you have, it's difficult to give that up. But once you do, now you have the freedom to redefine and realize that you're not defined by that, right? You can be defined by however you want to.
I want to ask you a question about that. So when it comes to your identity, when was the shift where you made the identity shift between, hey, I'm doing short-term rentals as a side gig versus, hey, I'm a short-term rental operator? Instead of going to events and being like, my name is Matt, I do software sales, right? That identity with the company versus, hey, now I'm Matt I'm a short-term rental operator and investor.
Yeah, like I said, I think the big mindset shift was going to that conference and realizing that, what we already talked about. But from that point, we said, okay, we're not going to, if we continue to try to do all the work ourselves, we're going to get burnt out. And this business is just going to be solely dependent upon our energy levels and our ability to do all the work. So that's when we said, okay, let's look at what this would be like if we scaled up to 30 or 50 or 100 properties. There's no way we can handle it. So what do we need to do proactively to get the business to that point, so that when we quit the jobs, when we drop the W-2s, that we're running a business and we're not in the business, right? And so that was the mindset shift. And within that 9-month period between the first conference and the second one, we hired a team of 5. So we have a team of 5 VAs with a team lead. So we actually have a hierarchy structure within the operations team. We put all the FAQs in. We recorded a bunch of Loom videos. Craig was huge on that. And we just got everything out of our brains into a process or into a Loom video. And then that was our training package for the new employees that were coming in. And there's no doubt we learned a lot going through that process. I know we've talked about that, Patryk, but that's where the mindset shifts from being an employee, which we technically were employees of our own business. We were doing all the work. And then you shift the mindset to an owner. We are business owners and we need to operate and run this business. We need to hire people to do that day-to-day work. Otherwise, we're just going to be employees. We're going to shift from one employee job to another employee job. So that's when I think the mindset shift happened. And that was a big epiphany for us. And yeah, it's been fun since then.
Yeah. So I want to wrap this up. I want to get to the last 3 questions. And one of the last 3 questions is one that I make up on the spot. I haven't even thought of it right now, but I'm gonna put it up there. So the first question, just gonna run into it. What books do you recommend? I'm gonna give you guys both one book you recommend. Doesn't have to be short-term rental or anything related to real estate. It could be any kind of book.
Okay, I'm going to give the obvious answer that probably every real estate investor got started with, but Rich Dad Poor Dad, I always go back to, like, I've read hundreds of books over the last 5-6 years, but Rich Dad Poor Dad, I always go back to that one. That's like the biggest mindset shift. There's nothing in that book that's, oh, you got to do this and this, but it's just a complete mindset shift of just being, like Matt said, like an owner, investor, right? To get that passive income, to get your time back. I mean, it's cool to have all the nice, like, cars and houses and stuff, but, like, time freedom is where it's at. Doing what you want to do, when you want to do it, with who you want to do it, right? So it's like, that is so key. And reading Rich Dad Poor Dad is just going to be a catalyst to change your mindset of just, hey, I want to be on the right side of the quadrant in the I and B part of the business, because that's more passive and there's no cap there. If you're an employee, you're going to get that 3% raise, 4% raise each year, and maybe a promotion after 5 years at 10%. But it's just like, with inflation and stuff, you really never get ahead, right? But when you're in the B&I, that income snowballs and it really takes off. So I think that's huge. Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Nice. Yeah, for me, I think Craig and I both get a lot of info. I'm reading real estate books, business books, mindset books, just really quick business books. E-Myth is great. Real estate books, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and ABCs of Real Estate Investing. I like that one, got me started. But I just want us to go to the mindset side, because I think that is really important, that you are also making sure that whatever your direction is, you run a business or you're working a W-2 or whatever, that you have the right mindset on where you want to go. And even if so many business owners get to run a business, but then they get totally burnt out and just exhausted and are stressed out and not happy. So I think you really got to be careful that you don't just go for the purpose of it, that you actually have an idea. So I'm going to say The Alchemist is a great book just to give you an analogy for a journey through life, and how some simple person is going through life and has this big goal of where they want to get to and where they want to reach. And they're trying to travel the whole world to get there, and they're overcoming all these obstacles. And then they end up finding a place along the journey that is blissful to them, and they love it and they're really enjoying it and just in a great place. And then they forget about what that end goal was or what that big thing was, because they're just really happy in the place that they're in. And so I think that is a great mindset to say, hey, enjoy the journey. The journey is the enjoyable part of it. It's not the what you reach at the end. It's the journey. Enjoy the journey and enjoy those happy moments along the way. And you might just find that your happiness is well before what your goal was. And then what else do you need in life?
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Next question. I do want to know, situationally, if you, Matt and Craig, if you guys were business partners, but it was, let's say that short-term rental stuff didn't work out, what would you guys be doing instead?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I almost think about the book The Alchemist again, where I'm just like, hey, we just made a decision, we went down this path, and then that path has snowballed into something much bigger that is a vision. I think if we failed at that first try, let's say COVID hit and we couldn't cover the leases and we just had to end the leases and we couldn't have kept the business going, I think that Craig and I would have learned a lot from it. I think that our mindset would still be the same, which is, hey, that's not just going to stop us from moving forward. And we probably would have ended up starting another business or starting something similar in a different area. Yeah, I just feel like we're constantly learning. Maybe we would have gone a different route into a different asset class, but the end goal is still the same for Craig and I. So I think we still would have found something to jump into.
So both of you guys still wanted to leave your jobs. That was the goal. So whatever medium that took, that's what you were going to do.
Yeah. And people are successful in all these different avenues, right? And we know people who are successful in all these different avenues of investing. So there's no shortage of options. We just chose this one and followed that path down and became experts in that area. So go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, and to answer your question, Patrick, yeah, like the financial freedom has always been like my main goal. And it's just, I don't really care what vehicle gets me there, but it's just, I just want a vehicle that gets me there. And that's where I saw like real estate and short-term rental as the vehicle, the surest, safest way to get to financial freedom, time freedom. So that's always been my goal. So even if it didn't work through COVID, I think I still would be in like rental properties or scaling some sort of business that was able to get me passive income, right? So I mean, it's just, I always look at the fruit of the tree, the lifestyle that I want. And I'm like, oh, I want this lifestyle. What different roles or what different jobs or businesses would give me that lifestyle? And then just go all in on that, right? So I think that's the main thing for me, is just like figure out what lifestyle or end goal you want, and then reverse engineer your way back on, all right, what do I have to do to get there? And what business is that? What investment is that? So I think that's always been my main thing.
That's interesting. I love that take, guys, because I can relate to that in the sense that I thought that tech was going to be the way that I was going to free up my life. And I raised venture capital, built a tech company. Didn't really work out, but everything that, it's funny because looking back, I'm so glad I still did that. Even if I knew I was going to fail, I still would want to, in hindsight, do that experience, because what I learned from that was something that I take into what I do right today. Even so, that's the cool thing, is there's no way you can lose by taking that opportunity, because you'll probably end up somewhere along where you want to go, like The Alchemist. I like that philosophy, guys. That's cool.
Yeah, I think we all take a zigzag path, right? You learn this, you learn that, and then you eventually latch onto one thing. And I think that's the key, is that you do have to latch onto one thing and get really good at it and get really deep into it. But there's no doubt that the path in life takes you on kind of a zigzag. And as long as you keep that vision in mind, you head that direction, then you'll end up reaching that goal as long as you stay focused on it. And I think, Patryk, what your experience in growing that business and raising the capital and creating that has probably helped you accelerate your current business so much faster, because you already know that, hey, it just takes action. You got to go for it. And then you've already done it once, right? You've already built a business once. So now when you do it the second time, it's that much faster. You get rid of those limiting beliefs early on. And I'm just really excited to see where you're at in 10 years.
Thanks, guys. Well, speaking of that, is the third question. That's a great segue, Matt. What's the future look like for Matt and Craig?
Yeah, so Craig and I try to put together a vision for the business. And as far as the business goes, we're going to try to be really singularly focused on growing the business operationally. We're not going to try to get distracted with a bunch of things. I think that's where shiny object syndrome can hurt you. If you are basically saying, hey, the day-to-day is repetitive here, let me go try this, or let me go try that, then you lose focus on your core business. So we're going to grow the core business, grow the management side, grow the arbitrage side, keep buying properties. That's the route we're going to keep going, and get to a point where we have a sizable business that we can then just have it cash flow and get to that financial freedom goal that Craig and I have. There's a lot of steps in order to get there, but that's the focus. There's a lot of tasks to do to get there. But other than that, we're definitely looking at boutique hotels as well. It's a really complimentary place to go. I know we've talked about it, but I think the natural progression in real estate is moving from residential to commercial, and a hotel is a commercial version of an Airbnb. So we've done a lot of these residential rentals, and the natural progression is to move to commercial. Similar thing, and then you get cap rates, and you get an accelerated valuation based on your operations, as opposed to a value based on the next door neighbor and how they're operating. So that's a natural progression that I think we're both going down, and I'm excited for that too.
Do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, just to go off what Matt said, I think it's really important to build the management company correctly. So have the correct systems and processes in place, get all the knowledge out of your brain onto like paper, into a Loom video, right? Because 10 years from now, me and him might be in completely separate places, right? We might have families. One might want to keep building it. One might want to get out, right? So it's just like, hey, build this company where you could sell it, right? So you could sell it to someone like yourself, Patryk, in 5 to 10 years. Or maybe we're both in position where like, let's keep on building this thing, right? So then we can acquire property management companies and bring them into the system. So I think just building the company the right way is what we're really focused on right now. So in 5 to 10 years, we have plenty of options. We're not just pigeonholed on like, oh, we just got to do this, we got to do that. So we can see where we're at in life and what we want to do with it. But yeah, the management and arbitrage, it's just such a nice cash flowing business, right? You're not like, I know a lot of people do like multifamily stuff, and you get really big paydays like 2 or 3 years down the road. But in the meantime, you're putting in the work and not getting paid for it. So man, this management, it just gives you cash flow each month, which helps you pay the bills. And if anything gets tight, you can tap into that money to pay for other things, right? Other expenses. So I think, just like Matt said, building the management company where it's just getting a sizable cash flow each month, it's really comfortable. And then we can dive into the boutique hotels where we can force that appreciation with better operations and really get that bang for your buck 2-3 years down the road, where you're going to get paid out a lot through appreciation. So I think that's what we're focused on right now. Build the management company to a certain size, and then get into more of the commercial assets where you can force that appreciation, get the big paydays down the road.
I love it. It's funny because I think the same way with my business. I'm doing the same exact thing, and we've talked about this. I love the cash flow. I need money right now. Active income versus passive income, right? The delayed gratification, I can do that, but I'd rather get the active side working first. And then from there, I can start dumping that money into commercial, which over time will, create wealth. But that is awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Now, last thing, how can people reach you guys? How can people get in contact with you guys? What's the best form?
Yeah, you can reach us by email. Feel free to reach out, partner at Stay Classy Homes. If you have any questions, if you're a realtor, we have realtor referral program for leads coming in. If you're an investor, we're looking to raise capital to pick up more arbitrages in the area here in San Diego. So if you have any questions, we're happy to share.
Which markets do realtors?
We're open to any of them. We're happy to expand. Right now we're in San Diego County, we're in Phoenix, Scottsdale, we're in Nashville, we're in Orlando, we're in Big Bear. So we are happy to go into new markets if it's the right type of market and the right type of property. So feel free to reach out.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show, and I appreciate the chit chat. And I think this was a great episode. So thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us, Patrick. Really appreciate it.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to the Patryk Real Estate Show. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a follow and leave us a 5-star review. Your support truly means a lot. And connect with Patryk in the show notes below. Until next time.